Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday Live, where we go live every Tuesday at 4 p.m. CST. I'm super excited to be here. Please let me know. Come on in and give me a hashtag replay if you're watching the replay here inside of Facebook. And I'm excited to get going today. We are talking about two kind of things. One of them is this path to creating a better relationship with food, right? A healthier relationship with food, one that's not so wackadoodle, right? Not so kind of crazy and disordered and all over the place, right? But then on the other side of that is weight loss, and just talking about like the two of these and how they're connected. And can you have both? There's a lot of ideas out there that you can't have both. So I think having like a nice conversation about this, looking at this from a couple of different angles, and then you get to decide for yourself if that is something that you want. So if you are new into my world, my name is Audra. I am the founder and creator of Hello Body Freedom, where we help women heal up the deeper reasons why they struggle with food and their body in the first place. So, obviously, today's topic is near and dear to my heart. And it is what we do with women, it's what we help with. And that is what we are going to dive into today. So, like, maybe, check in with yourself, check in with your own capacity of understanding emotional eating, right? So a lot of people just see their body and all they see is, I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. It's this very hyper focused um, intensity in the body of, this is not okay. I need to lose weight. Right. And so we often think that the answer is to follow a food plan or to follow things that are super strict and go on some diet in order to lose weight. And most of us do that. The problem with that is that 90 to 97% of all weight loss diets completely fail. And there's a lot of research behind it. There's a lot of reasons why, but at the end of the day, it's just a little wackadoodle what we do with the intensity and obsessiveness around weight loss. And I don't know if I can include you in that but I know myself for sure. I was a hot mess. I have a background in exercise physiology and nutrition. I owned a fitness and nutrition company in Silicon Valley. And in this phase of my life, there was just incredible hyper focus on my body, incredible hyper focus on being thin, on being ripped, on being shredded, on being skinny, on losing weight, and all of these intense things and the modalities that I had learned in college, in school, in certification programs, where you're really learning how to work with macros, you're learning how to work with calorie and calorie deficit, and you're learning how to work with high intensity interval training and all of these cool things. It's like, these are the answers, right? And on this process where I'm just hyper focused on weight loss, gotta lose the weight, gotta lose the weight. What kept happening is oh my God. I would completely fall off the wagon. It would be way too intense, as most diets are. Research shows that the bigger reasons why there's two huge reasons why diets don't work. Number one is they're so far off from the life and lifestyle you want to live, right? So you have, all of a sudden when you're super hyper focused on your weight, you're canceling invitations, you're not going to parties, you don't want to see anybody, right? For a lot of reasons. There's a lot of fear around food. What if there's food there that I can't eat? What if I end up overeating it? What if I don't know what to do about that? Right. And so we live in this like really closed off world of weight loss where we're following a food plan, we're following the diet that's very specific, and it's just shitty. It's like the opposite of living for sure. And then the world that's actually happening, which is date night with your partner, going out to family night with, your family and friends, going on vacation, right? All of these things then become hyper triggers to overeating and binge eating and creating, ultimately being a part of the problem in creating this really dysfunctional, jacked up relationship with food, right? And so I know that, just back to my story, I was a hot mess for a really long time because I was so hyper focused. And again, diets don't work because they're so far off from what you're already doing, but they also don't work because they're so massively restrictive. And also the caloric, like when you're decreasing your calories by such giant numbers, especially compared to what you're used to doing, it's just you are literally setting yourself up for a physiological binge, a physiological overeat. That means that it is a normal physiological response to overeat once you've been under eating or massively under eating for a long time, or a psychological overeat and a psychological binge. And this is when you are literally not allowing yourself to have bread, not allow it. Like, I'm never allowed to have bread, never allowed to have pasta, never allowed to have cookies, never allowed to have ice cream. And like, you get into this really like psychological mindfuckery where it's very black and white. It's either I am being perfect on my diet, or I'm messing up. And when I mess up, now I'm bad. Well, now screw it. F it. I might as well go eat all the food in the world, right? That becomes a big problem. And all of this leads to creating this really dysfunctional relationship with food. All right. And that's where I want to really talk and go into my story just a little bit more, because I was so hyper focused on always trying to be thin, always trying to look aesthetically in some way with weightlifting or, with running or with dancing or whatever it might have been. It was just so much hyper focus. And that the food was so focused on that too. It was always trying to eat the foods that were super healthy. And this created a lot of the wackadoodle in my mind, and also created the weird behaviors around food. It created a lot of overeating. It created a lot of binge eating. It created just a lot of feeling just out of control around food, right? Because I was scared to be around it. All of a sudden, I go to a buffet and I wouldn't know what to do because I was so used to having everything like perfect and prepackaged, and this is exactly what I have, and I don't look at anything else. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just not a way of living, really. And what happened for me is I finally just am like, F this. It was a so okay, I want to try to go a little deeper than F this, because that's definitely what happened. But there was a sense that my life was very vapid and superficial, that the only thing I was focused on was my body, how it looked, how unhappy I always was with it because it never looked the way I wanted it to. I mean, even like in the morning, I'd wake up and I would sort of like it. And then if I got a little bloated throughout the day, which by the way is called normal, people bloat, y'all, right? Now, if you're bloating every single day for the rest of your life, that's a different story. We need to work with some digestive stuff, but bloating is normal. But I would just go through these obsessive moments of like, nothing is right about my body. Um, I mean, it's just a shitty way to live. It doesn't feel good. It's just this chronic beating yourself up, this inner beat down from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep because things just aren't good enough. And I guess my breaking point was I just felt everything in my life was so superficial. That's where it came from. Now, and I don't want you to hear the words I'm using, everything. Like, there was a lot of black and white in these days. All right. Which, by the way, is also connected to unresolved trauma as well. This very like dissociated, all or nothing, black and white, like hyper aroused nervous system, just freak out. So here I am, uh, owning this fitness company, and finally just like, I don't want to be this way anymore. I really don't want, I'm just done with it. And what I did, because I was so pendulum, right? It was strict on a diet and then binge eating and then right back on the diet. Well, even my decision to just be like, I'm finished with this. I don't want to do this anymore. I almost burned my fitness company to the ground because like, I'm like, anybody that wants shredded six pack abs, like, I'm judging myself now because all of it felt so superficial and in this particular kind of breakdown phase for me. And in this typical fashion, I was pendulumed over here, and then finally the pendulum was like, screw it all. So now I'm like, F exercise. I never want to exercise again. It's so superficial to care about your body. And F these diets because I'm only creating major, major pain for myself, like huge, huge pain. So I made decisions to never go on another diet again. I made decisions to never exercise again. I say I like any time like that felt like, like fitnessy. I did not want anything to do with fitness. I didn't want anything to do with lifting weights. Like, so I had discovered yoga because at least a yoga felt a little bit more, I don't know, connected, deeper. I decided like no more running because running was connected to weight loss. So I'm like, I just moved to San Francisco. So I'm like, let's go for walks. So I would go for walks occasionally. It just felt it did feel a little extreme from given what I was to where I went. But at the end of the day, what I was choosing was what now people call food freedom or intuitive eating or something like that, right? Which is this idea where I'm not going to follow somebody's food plan. I'm just going to eat whatever the hell I want. And that's what I did for a very long time. Now, let's go ahead and try to find some middle ground here with these two extreme behaviors that I had because I was so sick of worrying about weight loss and being in that world that I just didn't care anymore. And so I was eating whatever I would want. Now, what I teach in the challenge, the Path to Freedom challenge that I run, it's my 5-day free challenge that you can sign up for, is I teach that like food freedom is not this massive restriction over here where we're restricting and denying ourselves food. But on the other side of that pendulum, food freedom is also not eat whatever you want at the whims of whatever you want. And this is part of the problem. Like, intuitive eating sounds like a great idea, but how many people I know are really stuck in an intuitive eating model of, well, I want ice cream, so I'm going to eat it. Well, I want cookies, so I'm going to eat it. Well, I want fast food, so I'm going to eat it. And I get the intuitive eating models like, no, if you just do that long enough, you'll end up cleaning it up. But what I noticed for me is I wasn't feeling good. It didn't feel good. And then what I learned, here I am over here, not focusing on dieting at all, not focusing on weight loss at all. Here I am over here. And I'm like, I'm definitely gained weight. I definitely feel more relaxed around food. I don't feel so like one thing that did stop is I wasn't binge eating anymore. I wasn't compulsively eating because all foods were allowed, right? It's a very, very important step. We teach this inside of Hello Body Freedom for sure. But from a standpoint of really coming into intuitive eating, if you have been struggling with eating for all sorts of other reasons besides physical hunger. So if you've had habits and there's a lot about my story I'm leaving out here, but like I mean my emotional eating started very 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 young in my life at least 6 years old, maybe earlier than that. Meaning I learned to eat because of sadness, boredom, stress, anxiety, any kind of discomfort in my body. And whenever we're eating for other reasons besides physical hunger, especially when we're learning these habits as kids, for sure, very much so, the habits are eating high calorically dense food, but not nutritionally dense, which is usually high sugar, high fat, high salt, processed types foods, right? And these foods are very addictive. And then they're a strong loop and they're really hard to get out of, right? And so it's not just as simple as, oh, just let's have some food freedom over here. There has to be a middle ground. All right. And it took me a while to figure out what that middle ground was. It took me coming into the middle to realize actually, exercising my body is good for me and it makes me feel good and it's good for my mental health and it's good for my muscles. It's good for freaking everything. So, what part of me needs to look at my belief system around, oh, this is so superficial and shitty and vapid and right? No, that wasn't the case. What was vapid and superficial was I had this very, very narrow mindset that was just hyper focused on weight loss. And when you're hyper focused on weight loss, you are obsessive around food and you are creating food issues and food drama and that requires a little pulling apart. So let's get back to the actual question because I really want to so bring this to what experts say. So there's a lot of people that just focus on weight loss, right? Like what I did. I went to school and I studied all this in school. Like I'm going to help you lose weight, right? And there's all of these plans. This is how you do it with macros. This is how you do it with calories. This is how you do it with food. This is how you do it staying away from this food and only eating this food. This is how you do it exercising, right? And you find all of these weight loss experts who know exactly what to do to diet you down and exercise you down to lose weight. But when you are only hyper focused just there, you are basically doing yourself a disservice over and over again. You are creating overeating and binge eating patterns that just make it worse. And you're actually not getting to the bottom and addressing the deeper reasons why you would be eating when you're stressed, bored, sad, scared, lonely, tired, angry. I just want it. It tastes good. Like there's a zillion reasons why we eat that are outside of connected to the body. In fact, they're so far disconnected from the body. In fact, what happens is when we're bored, sad, scared, lonely, anxious, stressed, all of these emotions have a sensation in the body. And for most of us, we don't like the way it feels. It is a sensation of boredom that does not feel good. It's a sensation of anxiety or stress. It does not feel good. And since we were kids, maybe we learned that if we ate a food, I will feel better. Right? How many of you work crazy ass long days and you bust your ass and you're there for everybody else? And then finally, at the end of the day, it's like, this is the only thing I have that's fun. And damn it, get out of my way. I'm going to eat what I want when I want and watch me because this is my alone time. This is my fun time. I deserve this, right? That is not that is, again, like, we have to clean those behaviors up in a way so food takes its rightful place, which is joy and fun and pleasure, but it's also nourishment, right? The best reason to eat is for physical hunger. And so there really has to be an untangling of this in a way where we start to understand a very different relationship with food than what weight loss culture teaches us, than what dieting culture teaches us, because that ultimately just adds fuel to the fire and makes the problem worse, right? There is another way that, yes, I believe can include both, right? But the difference is we have to start with connecting to the body. We have to start with learning what to do about regulating our nervous system and working on untangling all of these other reasons why we are overeating. And that is the emotional eating aspect. Whenever we take it from that realm and then we change up the behavior around eating, meaning we're not making it wrong if we're eating cookies, we're also not making it right if we eat salad. What we're learning how to do in this process is pay attention to our own body's cues of hunger and satisfaction. So we start to eat because of that. So instead of changing all the food up and making this food wrong and this food right, let's just use what you've got going on right now and let's start there. And then from there, we move forward based on over and over again connecting with the cues. So it's a really kind of like a meshed way of doing this. I will say that there are exceptions to this rule. If you are so like if this is the line of eating and my fingers right here, right where my fingers are, boop boop boop, is like normal eating. This is normal eating. Normal eating is enjoyable. There's not guilt involved. Um, the foods you choose are the foods that you want. They make you happy. You feel satisfied after eating, right? You're a little hungry before you eat. You're like, oh, I can't wait to eat this. You eat and you are happy because you ate. Normal eating does not include ignoring your hunger. And normal eating also doesn't include binging and just overeating until you're completely numbed out. Like normal eating is that right in the middle place, right? And then as we move in one direction or the other direction, we get more into what I would call disordered eating, which is where I think 90% of our population is, where we're eating for every other reason besides physical hunger, where we feel guilt and all these things, right? But if you happen to be moving on that spectrum way over to the outliers of this spectrum, right? Way over to this side, way over to this side over here, then you start getting more into like full-blown eating disorder territory. And this is where probably 100% weight loss shouldn't even be it almost you have to have a complete deprogramming of weight loss first and really focus on these deeper reasons that got us so far over here. um, I work with clients who have, most of my clients have just some disordered eating for sure. But I do work with clients that are on the outliers where it's eating disorders, but I'm a part of a team, right? So they have their therapists and they have their nutritionists, they have all the other people that they're working with. And I'm one part of that team, right? So I just wanted to put that out there just because we're talking about it. And but for most of us, we can do both at the same time. But here's the difference. It goes slower. And the other thing I want to say about my attitude towards weight loss whenever I was going through this, and I'm like, this is so superficial and vapid. Um, I just forgot to say this earlier, is that I came back to a middle ground. Like I do want to look good in my body, right? The difference is I'm not obsessed with it anymore. I do want to feel good in my body, but I'm not like going crazy where I refuse to eat an apple unless it's an organic apple, and I refuse to eat this thing because it's got 1 ounce of sugar in it. Like I'm just like not so obsessive about it anymore, right? There is a middle ground. And like lifting weights does feel good. And sometimes it is about aesthetics, and I want my butt to get a little higher back where it used to be bloop, right? And that's okay. The difference is I've got a lot of other goals in my life, and I've got a lot of other things going on, right? It is one aspect of who I am, and it doesn't take over even a little bit, right? So I think that that's an important point to make here, because like we don't want to wrong ourselves for wanting to lose weight. Almost every human on the planet who comes to me, you might be struggling with this messed up kind of relationship with food, and you want to heal this relationship with food. But it's very, very connected to, yeah, I have this messed up relationship with food, which is why I have so much extra weight on my body and it doesn't feel good for me. The two seem incredibly connected, and they are. right? And so, yes, we can do both. It's just that we do not take it from this old paradigm of counting macros and dieting ourselves down and obsessing over food and making it right, or if I eat perfectly, making it wrong if I mess up, which is part of the problem. We find this middle ground. We work through the Hello Body Freedom Formula, and it starts to do both at the same time. We start working with what's going on with food. We don't make it wrong when you quote unquote eat something bad, right? We really work on diet deprogramming and just really untangling all of this stuff so that you can have a bad day and not use food to cope. So you can feel stressed out and know you can have a stressful day and it's not the end of the world. Um yeah, that's what we do. So I hope that answers some questions for you. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a lot of fun. And that is it. That's what I have for you. Yes, you can have both. 8 times out of 10, you can have both. And even if, let's say, you're on the outliers, you're like way kind of over here, you're just not, I mean, you still get to like feel great in your body, and if weight loss is part of that journey, for sure, it's just that you're starting to really untangle the stuff first. And quite frankly, right when we come in, anybody comes into Hello Body Freedom, we have a very specific system we set people up on from the very beginning, meaning we cover all of our bases with untangling diet culture, working on body cues, and working on untangling this like unhealthy relationship with food, this kind of wackadoodle, emotional based, stress based survival mode, kind of like I'm using food to make me feel better all the time. And we start to untangle that, right? And then later, we do start to put in, well, let's talk a little bit more about what gentle nutrition is and how do we make gentle nutrition work for where you are on this journey, right? So, yeah, super. That's what we do here. Yeah. And if you want more information, get on it, get on it, get on it. Their Hello Body Freedom VIP coaching is closing. We start with all of our new people on April 1st, which is right around the corner. It's at the very end of this week. I'm super excited. And you feel free to get on the phone with me if you want to talk a little bit more about this. If you were like, wow, this makes a lot of sense for me. It is an amazing journey. It is a year-long journey inside of Hello Body Freedom. It is life-changing. And to have real high levels of support and coaching, this is what we do in Hello Body Freedom Coaching, then you definitely want to get on the bandwagon and hop in right now before it is done for a while. All right, my friends, mwah, have a beautiful Tuesday. And if you have any questions, just drop me a DM. I'm happy to communicate with you there too. Bye, everybody.